Omar Mansour, an elite personal trainer, performance coach, fitness consultant, and co founder of Track Life London. Omar has trained under Great Britain coaches and regularly competes at a club level, racing middle to long distance events. Due to Omar's highly educated approach to training, his clients achieve real results regardless of their level of fitness. Now, I love all types of exercise and running is no exception, but what running gives me is more than just exercise. When I go for a run, my mind is cleared from worries. I can think clearly, and when I arrive at the finish line, my reaction to stressful situations has improved. I feel motivated and ready to tackle the day with clarity and confidence. But I'm not alone, and that's because running stimulates blood flow, oxygenates the brain, and enhances cognitive function. So it's safe to say that having a regular running practice can provide a valuable advantage in the professional and personal realm of a person's life. During this episode, Omar discusses his 360 approach to improving his clients' physical and mental health, which includes a bespoke strategy for their physical training, diet, and lifestyle. He reveals exactly how to improve running technique, increase speed, strength, and endurance, and what and when to eat to optimize running potential. Omar also provides very useful tips for marathon runners and squashes the biggest misconceptions of running. So without further ado, this is Omar Mansour and the story of an elite personal trainer, performance coach, fitness consultant, and of course, Track Life London. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So I thought that we could kick off the interview by, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, your personal training business, and Track Life London.
Yeah, so I'm a personal trainer, as you said, a strength and conditioning coach, a run coach, and I am founder of a run community called Track Life London. I kind of do a few different things as I've gone over the years, but we could sum it up as that for sure.
Excellent. I've been following your Track Life London on Instagram for quite some time, and as like a runner, well, I'm not sure I can describe myself as a runner. I love running. I'm terrible at it, and it seems like the coaching that you give within that Track Life London is phenomenal. So I think that as like a not professional, totally amateur runner, it seems like a really great community that you've created. So yeah, I think that you've done a fantastic job there. So tell me, why do you do what you do?
Thank you firstly for the shout out of the community that we're building. Um, I guess my background, I came from track and field, so I used to run at a decent level when I was younger. Then I got into personal training and coaching as I got a little older. And the first thing that I can say to people is people categorize themselves as runners or not runners. And I always say, scratch that. There's no, set requirements to be a runner. Everyone can run. It's a natural motion. So even I heard you said, oh, I'm not a runner. You are a runner. Everyone's a runner. It's just a case of, some of us can improve our technique, improve our run fitness. And like anything, if you practice more of it, you're going to get better at it. So there's no qualification to be a runner. So everyone listening out there, you are a runner already. You don't have to qualify to be one. But of course, we can get better, and that's exactly what we try and do at Track Life. We try and make you better than when you've come to the club, but we do it in a way that's fun, engaging, and a way that motivates you, hopefully, to keep on running. I guess going back to your question, why do I do what I do? I do what I do because number one, I love it, and I see how health and fitness can impact other areas of your life. So being a personal trainer, I've seen the power of what fitness can do. And I think, especially after COVID and times like that, people realize how powerful physical training can be, and just unlock other areas to your life in a good way. So I guess that's the crux of why I do what I do.
So I know that you do, well, you've mentioned that you do personal training, so not just in a running coach kind of method. But what type of exercise or combination of exercises would you say is best for physical health?
So when we're talking about physical health, I kind of look at it from a 360-degree angle. So a lot of people right now are obsessed with the training side, which is amazing, but it's only one aspect. And I think just looking at it as a training session and then you leave it's kind of only looking at part of the jigsaw. So when I talk about 360 degree, I look at training, I look at nutrition, so what you are consuming in physical form or drinks. Then we look at mindset. Then we look at lifestyle. So they would be the kind of pillars that would look at if a client were to come to me and ask for, you know, a sort of fitness goal. So the reason we look at it as a 360 approach is it all intertwines and it all affects each other. So you could be coming in and having an amazing session in the gym or outside the gym, wherever you're training. But then what are you doing for the other 23 hours in the day? Because that's all going to contribute to your overall health. And again, mental health is a massive topic at the moment, moving forward. And that is an element as well. The psychology, the mindset behind doing what you do comes into it. So I guess when we're looking at overall health, you want to look at it from a physical point of view, a mental point of view, and then look at what you're consuming nutritionally, and then your lifestyle. So do all of these things marry up to how you want your health to be? And when you've got those components working together, I believe you can be in sort of good health. If we look at it from just the training side, and we're looking at what sort of sessions you want to be doing if you're trying to be healthy generally, I'd be looking at specifically some strength work to help with the skeletal system, because as we get older, we lose a lot of strength and bone density and muscle capacity. So I'd look at strength. I'd look at mobility for most of us, because the majority of us are tight and restricted due to us sitting down a lot in everyday life. And then I'd look at the cardiovascular element. So that's just basically your heart and lungs, how fit you are over sort of a longer period of duration of exercise. So the strength, mobility, and cardio would be like the three components you want to blend from a training side. But then you've got kind of the overall pillars, which are a little bit higher up, and they contribute to overall health.
Excellent, thank you. So there's a couple of things in your answer that I want to kind of like delve down a bit deeper in. So I'll just touch on the training of the strength, mobility, and what else did you say? Sorry, I can't remember.
So I said strength, mobility, and then the cardiovascular system.
Okay,
so
cardio. So I love exercising, but what I tend to do is, well, I do reformer Pilates and yoga. So because, as I said, I love exercising, but I'm not an expert at it. I don't know if I should do my arms, leg day, or abs, in what order and what kind of routine I should be doing. So I like to think to myself that doing reformer Pilates kind of like ticks all these boxes, because I'm using my body weight and there's a lot of mobility. And I mean, I get a little bit worn out doing it, so I'm hoping that that also ticks the cardio box as well. But would you say that I am living in a fairy tale, and the Pilates and yoga are not doing all of that? Should I incorporate more into my routine?
Listen, not at all, not at all. You're doing something, and that's the main thing. So you're already ahead of a lot of people who aren't doing any exercise. And I think the first question to ask is, do you enjoy that type of training?
I love it. I do it every day. It's not even a chore.
Then already you're down the right route. And I think we've kind of gone down the route in the fitness industry that don't do this and do this, because that's what grabs people attention on Instagram and social media. But the truth of the matter is movement in general is positive for us. It doesn't matter how you do it. So my first piece of advice to anyone asking themselves, are they doing something, in a successful way in health and fitness, is, are you enjoying it? Because if you are enjoying it like yourself, you're going to stick to it. You're going to do it more often. And like you said, it's not going to be a chore the majority of the time. And that's the number one thing. And that's going to be consistent for you. So already you enjoy the Pilates. Pilates is a fantastic workout. It's not one that I do, but I've got a lot of friends who teach it and a lot of friends that go to it. And from a strength point of view, from a course point of view, from a mobility point of view, it does kind of tick a few boxes, which is great. Then it comes down to the question of, okay, you're doing that stuff, you're doing yoga, so your mobility, your core strength, a little bit of cardio, like you said, is already getting touched on. So do you need to do other stuff? If that doesn't align with what you're trying to do, then no, that's perfect. If you wanted to say, Omar, I've got a half marathon coming up, would we keep your training program the same? maybe not. Maybe we'd keep elements of it, but add a little bit more cardio down that end. So I always say, enjoy what you do, but also come back to the goal. And that's why all of my clients will have some sort of goal, even if it's just to enjoy it, right? You've got to know, kind of have a sort of purpose to why you're doing it. So if you have a goal and then you cater the training towards the goal, that will be a little bit more in line rather than just saying there's one size that fits all, because we are all individual and there's no right or wrong way. So in short, yes, you're doing great. You don't need to change anything unless your goal changed, in which case you might want to tweak around your training program.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that. So you also mentioned in the 360 plan that you have food as well, and like a diet plan. So whilst everybody is different, as you just said, is there a specific diet plan or number of calories or macros that you recommend to your clients?
So again, it goes kind of back to their goal. So I've got clients that are looking to reduce some fat percentage, so drop some weight. I've got clients that are looking to bulk, so build more muscle. Then I've got clients that are looking to maintain the weight they're at. And then I've got clients just trying to live a healthy, balanced life. So depending on what goals they have will determine, how many calories they consume. If someone's on a very strict program, then they may want to monitor calories, especially if you're trying to lose weight or gain weight. It's just a great way to track what you're doing and it gives you a bit of data. However, if it's just a healthy maintaining your lifestyle, then we might come away from the numbers and look at more sort of quality and frequency of meals that can fit inside someone's lifestyle. So it very much determines what they've got as a goal. But essentially, we're trying to look at, again, why you're doing what you're doing. Do we need to make any changes with the nutrition side, and how to basically eat a healthier lifestyle during your busy life? So that's kind of the main aim. So it does depend on what they're doing and what they're going for.
Yeah. As like a general rule of thumb, what is a healthy, balanced, I don't know, diet plan in terms of macros?
For me, and I think this is one that people are kind of forgetting a lot. So everyone's talking about calories and how much you consume. And whilst that is important to an element, I'm a big believer that quality of calories is so much more important, because today we are consuming so much processed foods without even realizing. I mean, you look at the ingredients, a lot of the foods we're eating, and it's just been tampered with, and a lot of preservatives and stuff to keep it. So for me, my rule of thumb for a healthy lifestyle is go as close to the source as you can. I appreciate not everyone can, and due to like the crazy, prices of things in the supermarket and the way the cost of living is, you can't always opt for organic, but go for natural sources as best you can. And that means, stop trying to go for the processed packet stuff, because likely that's not giving you much nutrients for the stuff you're consuming. So my number one rule is try and eat close to the source. And then my number two rule is look at a balanced plate. So when you eat, look at a combination of things. Don't over obsess and cut out one food source. We need carbohydrates. They got a hard time a lot of the years saying that they were the cause of people getting fat and putting on weight. Carbohydrates are our number one source of energy. So we need that. Protein is a great one that a lot of us are deficient in, so we don't eat enough protein, and that helps us curb hunger spikes and stay fuller for longer, rebuild muscle. So protein is a good one. And then you've got to have your healthy fats as well, and then some vitamins and minerals. So when I look at my plate, I'm like, okay, have I got some sort of, low carb, low GI carbohydrate, typically your rice, your pasta, something like that, your quinoa? Have I got some vitamins, so some salads, some veg? Yes, great. Have I got some protein and then some healthy fat? So just looking at that as a balance and trying to, have that on a regular basis through your meals is a good place to start.
Also, you mentioned the healthy lifestyle that's in your 360 plan. What is a healthy lifestyle if not talking about diet and exercise?
So I think it differs again. I try to avoid using a one size fits all, because we are all individuals and what makes us tick is so different from one person to the next. So again, for me, if from a client point of view, I'm trying to understand them before I even talk about plans and health, because I want to know their mindset of where they're at and what makes them happy outside of the gym. Some people like to do different things to others in their lifestyle, and I think that's the important thing. It comes down to what makes you happy, what makes you content, and then is this aligning to what I'm trying to achieve, maybe outside of or inside the gym or outside of work and family, whatever. So all these things have to kind of be considered to marry up. And the reason I talk about all these things is because they have an impact in decisions you make. For example, I believe in having a balance and having a great social life. But at the same time, if you've got a priority of achieving a fitness goal, you can't be out every night having a drink, because that's going to impact, your potentially your half marathon you got coming up if you want to achieve a personal best. So something's got to give, but at the same time, you've got to have that balance. So I believe in kind of cycling phases, and that way you can get a dose of everything. Because for me, I get bored if I have the routine too consistent, week after week. I want to have fun. I want to have a good night out. I want to stay up late sometimes, but I have my kind of time to do that. And then if I've got more of a fixed goal, in a 12-week plan, I'll make sure maybe I sacrifice some of that from a lifestyle point of view. So I think the lifestyle has to marry up with what you're trying to do with the other aspects of your life. And then, the trick is juggling all of it, and something's going to have to give. You can't have an amazing social life. And when I say that, I mean, out every night, burning the candle at both ends, start work early, smash the gym, then repeat that and not have sleep. So these things always have to be kind of like looked at again from a bird's eye view and be like, okay, Christmas, for example, we know the social calendar is going to be a bit busier. So maybe like, let's not set ourselves unrealistic fitness goals in December, and let's maybe prioritize having a good time with our friends and family, if that's what you're after. So again, just looking at phases throughout the year of when maybe the lifestyle can change slightly to complement the other areas of your life, I think is important. But at the same time, life is short and life is for living. So as long as you're happy with that balance you've got, I think that's the most important thing. But you have to at the same time look at, is this matching up with what I'm trying to do as an overall goal?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the balance is like utmost important. Have you ever heard of that 10-minute rule where you can come away from your goal is not the right word. You can break a habit that you are trying to achieve if you wait for 10 minutes. So say like you wanted to go throughout the day without eating a piece of cake. But you thought, no, I'm gonna enjoy this piece of cake. And you can have it, that's fine. It's just that you have to wait for 10 minutes and then you can have it. And apparently most people change their mind and won't eat this piece of cake after 10 minutes. So yeah, I like that little anecdote.
Do you know what? I haven't heard of it. I haven't tested that one out. But yeah, I guess it might be something to do. Again, I don't know. I'm guessing here, like to do with like sometimes impulsive decisions. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, just sometimes giving yourself time to reflect, and a bit longer, then maybe you have that kind of mental clarity of, do I want to do this or do I not? But
Yeah.
again, I don't think there's like a right and wrong answer and black and white. It is very individual to what kind of makes you tick and what you want out of life. And it's not always going to be a perfect aligned week for you. There are nights where you're going to be tired and you're going to burn the candle at both ends, and then it's just recognizing, all right, I need to cut back a little bit and balance life again. And I think we go through stages, don't we? Life isn't like just constant and consistent. So we go through times of being really low and life's quite hard, and then the highs of life as well, where everything seems to be going along well. And it's just kind of riding the highs and riding the lows, and not to like beat yourself up when it gets a bit hard, or you haven't nailed your training sessions, or you've eaten a little bit extra. So what? Like, life is not this regimented rule book, that we have to follow. It's just kind of be kind to yourself along the way
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Life is short. Eat the cake.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. Let's get a t-shirt made.
How regularly can you or should you run to maintain and increase cardiovascular fitness?
Okay, so this again, I know I've been similar answers here. This really comes down to the individual. If you've got someone who's untrained, who hasn't run for many, many years, or maybe a day in their life, then, pretty much anything they do, as long as they don't get injured, is going to have a positive effect because they're coming from nothing. So those guys and girls are going to see the biggest change and the fastest changes. So if I don't run and I suddenly run once or twice a week for 4 weeks consistently, I'm going to see quite a big change in my cardiovascular health, and that's great. However, if you're someone, training most days and you come from, a fit childhood, you played sport, you've run a few, distance races, and you've trained all your life, then you guys and girls are going to need to train a little bit more or a little bit smarter in order to maintain a level. So I think 5K is a popular distance that a lot of people do. Park runs kind of pick that distance, and there's that app Couch to 5K. So people who have never run, literally from the couch, getting up to build up to a 5K. It's a really nice target. I think 5K is a good measurement. If you can run a 5K at your pace without stopping, I think that's a good measure of your sort of run fitness. And then you've kind of got your sort of like times that a lot of people aim for. So, your 30 minutes is a big barrier. Your 25-minute, your 20-minute is a big barrier. And then from there, anything under 20 is you're training quite well and quite often. So I think it's hard to do a blanket answer on that, but the untrained person is gonna get a lot more benefits than maybe the trained person in terms of how quickly their cardiovascular endurance will improve. But if I were saying like a general rule for running, I would say you want to be going from anywhere for 2 to 4 runs a week. Okay, if you are serious about a running goal.
Okay, 2 to 4 runs a week. I like that now. So as I said, I don't really run, but I love running. When I was a little bit younger, I used to run for about, I don't know, 5K a day. This was over a 3-month period, and I never used to warm up or cool down or stretch. And once I stopped, I started getting like a bad knee. So I stopped completely because every time I started and stopped and started, well, every time I started back up again, thinking that my knee issue had resolved itself, it would start like twinging again. So yeah, I'm not a person who runs consistently. But yesterday I went out for a morning run and I didn't warm up at what I started walking and then started running. And then when I got home, I jumped in the car and then took my sister to the station. So I didn't stretch. What did I do wrong there? And why is it important to properly warm up pre-run and stretch post-run?
Well, listen, look, as I was younger, I could do anything. I could run. I could go into a hard run. I could sprint for the bus. I could do whatever, and I wouldn't have to warm up. Now I've got to like over 30. I'm having to do my routines, warm ups, warm downs. And it's simply because we're getting older, muscles are getting tighter, our joints are getting a little bit more worn. We just have to take a bit more time to look after our bodies. It's as simple as that. If you remember the days of being a kid and doing sport, you didn't really do a warm up or cool down, did you? But the older you get, the more you have to look after your body. So that's all it is. It's just an element of, um, why do we warm up? Well, we warm up because we want to prepare our body for the exercise that we're about to do, and it reduces the risk of injury because you're literally warming up your body. You're raising your heart rate. You're getting blood flow going around your body. You're getting your fluids and your joints, ready to go for some activity. So you're basically using that warm up to tell your body, like, I need you to do some physical activity now. So I'm preparing you. I'm giving you like a nice sort of build up going through the gears. And I always liken it to like a car. If you whack a car into like gear 5, gear 6 without a warm up, it's not gonna sound or feel very good. And we're the same. We just need to go through the gears. And then from the cool down point of view, if you've done some exercise, especially intense exercise, your heart rate's high, everything's pumping in your body. If you just stop, then your body doesn't have time to sort of calm itself down, and everything kind of just immediately shuts down from 0 to 100 or 100 to 0. So the cool down is to give you a chance for your body again to just calm itself down, stretch out, get the blood flow going again, and just cool yourself down. And that will help sort of delay too much soreness the next day. So that can help. So that's essentially the warm up and warm down. But you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes we just don't have time. But I always say the more intense the exercise, the more important the warm up and cool down are.
What about like, so I've heard that runners as well get tight hips. So is it important to stretch for that reason to make sure they don't become tight?
100%. If your muscles in the areas are tight, then you're going to restrict your movement, and restricting your movement can affect, from a running point of view, how much force you can produce. So, let's take our hips. If our hips are tight, then that may reduce the range of motion of how high I can lift my knee, which will in turn be, you know, consequently is going to suffer driving that foot down. So limited range of motion. Then if something's imbalanced, you can put more strain on another area of the body, which can cause injuries down the line. So yeah, some things such as tight hips should be addressed as you sort of go through your training week to help. So the thing with running, as good as it is cardiovascularly, from a mobility point of view, you're never really stretched out or extended in a running stride. So you're always contracting and quite short with your muscles. So typically, distance runners will get quite tight through the hips, through the calves, through the ankles. So mobility is a good sort of important focus point when you are running. So yeah, 100% you should spend some time and give your hips some TLC.
So I know that on your Instagram you have like reels that show warming up exercises and stretches, but if you had to give me like the most important um warming up exercise for a running session and then a stretch, what would you say it is?
So again, you don't have to spend ages and ages. I think that's what puts people off. They think they have to spend like 20 minutes warming up. And like I said, if you're just doing a run, an easy run, let's say on a Sunday morning, then I would say just get out of bed and just focus on 3 to 5 stretches. You want to predominantly do dynamic stretches, which basically just is a fancy word of saying movement stretches. So stretches like hamstring swings, so leg swings, just because it gets your blood going and stretches out the muscle in a better way when you're cold. So I would say focus on some dynamic swings with the legs. Focus on doing some sort of ankle rotations because you're going to put a lot of strain on your ankle joint. Do some sort of hip mobility. So we talked about tight hips. And then look to do some activation. So some glute bridges, some calf raises. Something like that is just a short routine, 4 or 5 stretches and activations that will just help you feel a little bit better. Otherwise, what tends to happen is if you go out cold running and you're a bit achy, you tend to warm up in the first mile, and then you probably start to feel a little niggle here and there in the calves, in the Achilles, in the hamstrings, and then you have to end up stretching during your run. So, or you just end up, running through it and then picking up niggles. So it just kind of gives you a bit more prep before you run. And like I said, it doesn't have to be long, and just focus on those sort of key areas.
Would you say 5 minutes is enough?
I mean, my optimal is like 8 minutes,
8 minutes.
8 to 10. But 5 minutes is so much better than nothing. Like if you have to, and again, like it depends on the intensity. If I'm just doing a very easy run, 5 minutes is probably enough for me. But if I'm going to try and do some sprints, I definitely want to take about 8 minutes to 10 minutes because it's going to be a little bit more intense. So I need my body to kind of go through the gears a bit more.
So what is your advice for increasing speed? And I say this because my niece is training for a marathon and she is really working on getting her time up. And it's just something that she doesn't know. So yeah, I was wondering if you could answer that for her.
100%. So, especially from a long distance point of view, I would say interval training is very effective. So, that's a session like we do at Track Life London every Monday. We will get the group together and we'll do a good warm up, good drills, and then the main session will be some sort of interval work. And for those people listening, maybe that don't understand that term, all it is basically some faster efforts followed by a recovery. And that recovery could be a stop, that could be a walk, that could be even a light jog, and then you repeat some sort of faster, harder interval. And that's interval training, start, stop training. And the reason it's so effective for getting faster is because you expose your body to a faster speed. So, such as your niece trying to get a faster marathon time, at some point, she's got to expose herself to faster running for a short amount of time in order to get comfortable at that new speed. So that's why interval training is so good. Now, it doesn't mean you do interval training every day. That won't, work. You need to pick it about twice a week is a good sort of number to go for to start with, once or twice a week. But yeah, that would be my number one sort of tip for people who aren't doing that type of training, to introduce it. And it can be, intervals can run from literally, 100 to 200 meter intervals all the way to, 2K intervals. It can be so wide, the spectrum, and each session can have a different purpose. But the idea is you introduce yourself to faster than that race pace running. So your niece will need to do some sort of faster than marathon pace work in order to get faster. And then hopefully that will just allow her to run quicker at a comfortable pace. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is some sort of strength training. And the reason strength training is good is because the stronger you are, the more force you can produce per stride and the more efficient you can be. And if you can improve your efficiency when you're running, then that just means you're using less energy when you run. And in a marathon, that adds up. So if you can be more efficient with your running style, producing more power, then every stride is just, you're just going to be using less energy. And obviously for a marathon, if anyone's ever done that, you know how much energy it takes. So if you can conserve a bit of energy just from improving your run mechanics, that's going to be useful for you. So I'd say interval training, strength training would be a good place to start.
And how many times a week should they be training?
Again, depending on what their sort of ability is, their level of training, their experience. But typically, like I said, interval training should be 1 to 2 sessions a week. Strength, 1 to 2 again a week. And then if you're marathon running, the bulk of your running is going to be the longer efforts, so your longer runs around there. There's no set sort of training amount. Typically, your intermediate to advanced runners will be running anywhere from sort of 5 to 10 times a week. Your beginners, you're looking at like 2 to maybe 5 runs a week, but it all depends on a lot of factors. So you just have to be smart with it and not jump up too quickly with the training.
I really take my hat off to people running marathons because it's so much physical and mental work. Yeah.
And time, Stephanie, like the time it takes, honestly, like I commend it. I've only done one marathon, right? And I will do another one. But my Sundays were gone doing marathon training because I'd be out there for 2 hours running. If you think then the prep before, the food after, your day just goes. So yeah, big up anyone doing a marathon or a marathon training.
How did you feel though when you crossed the finish line? Was it all worth it in the end?
No, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. It was no, it's an amazing feeling. It is an amazing feeling. Just like at that point, you don't care about the time. If you've pushed your body so hard, you just want to just finish and just cross that line. So it is an amazing feeling, but it does take a lot of dedication with the training side of things.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that you like landed face first on a huge bowl of pasta after, because that's what I reckon I would have. But on a marathon race day, what do you recommend eating, and how many hours before the race?
So I'd say always practice this out before race day. So never try anything new on race day because it can backfire and it's not a smart decision. So any sort of nutritional things you want to try it in weeks leading up, and then try it a few more times to get a sort of result. But typically, most marathons are done in the morning, so you have to wake up quite early. Um, I would, if I was running a marathon, I would eat for breakfast. I would get a bowl of porridge, so some good carbohydrates, slow releasing carbs. I'd get some honey, some banana on there because you want your glycogen, your carbohydrates to be high. And I'll just hydrate really well. So I have like electrolyte drinks and stuff like that. And then during the marathon, I would have some gels and that to keep me going. But yeah, if that's the kind of morning race, then you probably only have time for one meal, and that would probably be like a meal I'll go for porridge, or toast with peanut butter and banana on there, something like that. Your go-to running snacks. And then the night before, you just want to carb up, but again, not do anything so excessive, because let's say, right, you're used to a certain portion size of pasta and you go and double that the night before the marathon, you could next morning be in absolute agony. You could be getting cramps. You might need the loo, which is a nightmare when you need to run. So don't go overboard, and practice it in sort of your training.
I wasn't going to ask you this. My niece Billy asked me to ask you, um, but I wasn't going to. I was going to save it for off yet. She says, "What do you recommend doing when you need to go to the toilet during a marathon?"
Well, you can do the Paul de Radcliffe and just go in the middle of the street, if you're that serious about time. But listen, it's yeah, it's not the one. You just need to find a loo, go for it, or I wouldn't recommend holding it because it's too long to hold it for. So like, if you need to go, you need to find a way to go. So
2 miles in.
yeah, 2 miles in that's a nightmare right there. If you've got a mile left, you might be able to hold it, but yeah, it's a tricky one, and that's why the the training of nutrition on your long runs, especially. So everyone will do a long run if you're training for a marathon, and you've got to try out your food prep, your breakfast, your night befores, your gels. Everything needs to be done on that long run. So that way, you get to race day and you know your breakfast, you know your snacks, and you know your toilet timing. Because if you're regular with your food and you're regular with your training, your toilets will be regular.
Yeah.
So you can know, most likely you might have a bit of nerves that might make you go toilet quickly, but yeah, you'll know sort of your routine. So if you haven't prepped, then you can get a few surprises on the day, in which case you just have to deal with it you best you can.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm sure Billy and many other marathon runners will appreciate that advice. So I quite like intermittent fasting. I tend to do 16/8 most days, and then I also combine it sometimes with 5/2. So I have a friend of a friend who does intermittent fasting, I think 16/8, and he's training for the marathon. Now, he saw a nutritionist not so long ago, I understand, who said intermittent fasting was not good for. I understand it was just intermittent fasting, it's not good, but whether or not it's because he was training for a marathon, I'm not too sure. And because I think there are so many health benefits to it, yeah, I'm a big advocate for intermittent fasting if done right. What is your opinion on intermittent fasting whilst training for a marathon, or if you're just kind of like looking to become a better runner?
So with a blanket approach, I would say no, don't go for it. And the reason being is, if running is your main goal and you want to perform better, then why would you be restricting yourself of kind of the fuel you need to run? Now, that being said, there are sort of research studies that show if you can do one of two things. If you can run on low carbohydrates, you can train your body to use fat as a primary source. But for me, that takes a lot of time and a lot of testing, which, unless you're an elite athlete ready to kind of test out those things, it's just more can go wrong than right with it. So where carbohydrate is your main fuel as a runner, if, for example, let's say we're in a fasted state and we're going out for a long run or training a hard interval session, and you're low on glycogen, then it means you're not going to perform at your best, which means you're leaving potential progress on the table there. So as a blanket rule for most runners, I wouldn't say be trying to fast, because if your goal is to run as fast as possible and get as best training as you can, you need the calories and you need to not restrict yourself. That's my sort of overview on that. But like I said, I do know pro runners that have tried out running in a fasted state. So, for example, going to bed on low carbs, and then going for a long run and then not eating until a certain window. And then they're trying to train themselves to use fat as a primary source, and access those fat stores. So in a marathon, they can sort of go at a more sustainable rate by using fats. But again, unless you're elite and you're trying to look off those minutes, like, there's plenty of other things you can do. So yeah, that's my kind of guidance towards runners. That's not saying 16/8 interval fasting is intermittent fasting is bad, but for running, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend it more for someone who's trying to drop weight, or for someone who's trying to get used to or introduce fasting benefits to their lifestyle. But for runners, it's a no from me.
I get it. That makes sense. So, what is a misconception of running that you want to squash?
One big one is running is bad for your knees. It's not bad for your knees, just poor planning and poor structuring in your program it can be bad for your knees. So if you're jumping up your running too much, or you haven't maybe had a physio consultation and you've got some issues and some injuries underlying, and you go and smash out running, then yes, that can hurt your knees. But running itself, as with any other activity, is not bad for you. It's just maybe not right for you, but it doesn't mean it's bad for your knees. So that's one big one. And then the other one is one that we touched on earlier in the convo, that people say I'm not a runner. And I go back to saying you are a runner, everyone's a runner. It's just a case of, improving where you're at and maybe tweaking a few things to make you a better runner. But there's no such thing as a runner and a non-runner. We're all runners. So they're the two that I would say misconceptions that I hear a lot.
That's very good to know. Thank you. Now, I can see that you're always on the go. So, how do you maintain your health and general well-being as an entrepreneur who, is always on the go, always on the clock?
I think I've had to get really good at planning. And to be honest, I'm only good at planning when it comes to my work and my training. Everything else, I kind of leave to the last minute. That's my nature. My friends call me short term because I literally only think about the next 24 hours a lot of the time. But with the sort of work week and the training, I have to be quite disciplined. So I'm quite old school. I've got like a A4 diary, written diary, and I just look at, like, on a Sunday, I'll write everything out, my schedule, from meetings to clients to other work that I have, and then I fit in my sessions around that. And it's literally just being quite strict with my diary from when I wake up to when I go to bed, and that's pretty much how I manage to fit things in. And obviously things change and stuff like that, but um, if I don't plan and I go into a week without planning, then it's kind of everything's kind of all over the place. So kind of that prep, at least on a weekly basis, if not, every few weeks, I need to plan in advance. Is the way I can sort of balance the work challenges and then my own training. Because at the moment I've got High Rocks I'm training for. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically a fitness competition which mixes running and strength exercises. And there's a championship in June that I'm training for, and it involves pretty much training once or twice a day most days. So it's quite intense, but you just kind of have to find a way to make it work. And if it's what you want to do, then you'll find a way. So,
Are you exhausted every night when you go to bed?
do you know what? I am, but I've started. One of my clients, they bought me an Aura ring,
Oh, yeah.
and it's amazing because it's just made me a little bit more in tune with my sleeping. So Um, I kind of don't always go to bed early enough, but I have early starts where this Aura ring, it kind of makes you, like, it tells you how much sleep you're getting, but then also the quality of your sleep. But I found, like, if I'm not in bed early enough, then typically, you don't fall asleep straight away. Then the quality of sleep and the amount of sleep is sort of not as good. So this tells you basically how recovered you are from your sleep. And then based on your activity that you've done, your readiness, like, it gives you a readiness score. So it tells you, okay, you're ready to have a hard session, an easy, or maybe you're a bit burnt out, you should have an easier session. So I am tired when I get to bed, but this has helped me sort of like pay more attention to my sleep and recovery. And then naturally, who would have thought, the more you sleep, the fresher you feel.
So I was going to get one of these Aura rings. The thing that put me off it is, or kind of like made me change my mind, of me already knowing the fact that I don't get enough sleep, and then me thinking, oh, I'll just get into bed earlier. And it doesn't happen. So what does this Aura ring do? Just give you just like force you to do it because you can see the data there?
for me, yeah, but again, that's what makes me tick. Like, I get excited when I see progress. So for me, if I'm training hard and I'm working hard already and I'm kind of at my max in that aspect, I'm looking for another few percent somewhere. So for me, I know what makes me tick. So having that sort of score will force me to go, all right, get my ass to bed, or I want to see improvements. I want my recovery score to be good so I can go and smash tomorrow's session. So for me, it works. I don't recommend it for everyone. If it's going to make you more anxious, and that was the feedback from some of my friends and people I know, they were like, you know what, like yourself, I already know I don't get enough sleep. The ring was just telling me I'm not recovered every day. And I guess if you're not willing to do anything about that, then it's kind of a case of there's no point in getting it. But if you're willing to kind of look at it and go, you know what, okay, I know this is backing up what I already know. I don't get enough sleep. So again, maybe I can go to bed literally half an hour earlier every day, get into bed. And over the week, that probably will add up to near a night's sleep, half an hour to an hour So it's such a small change every night, but in the long run, it's going to add up. And I think that's the thing I found. Like, instead of getting 6 hours sleep, if you think I'll get 7 hours sleep, by the end of 7 days, that's a whole night's sleep you're getting more. So from a recovery point of view, that's huge. But an hour isn't really here or there, maybe getting into bed earlier. So yeah, I would say it's not for everyone, but if you're willing to like kind of make a small change here or there, it can help.
Excellent, thank you. So what is your top tip for being a successful entrepreneur,
Omar? Very good question. Well, listen, I'm not, made by any chance. I think I'm always trying to push forward. So my advice to where I got to at the moment, I would say expect to fail in a way, and don't look at it always as a bad thing, because I think you learn, as cheesy as this may sound, a lot more from your failures than your wins. So part of the learning process is being comfortable at failing and getting it wrong a lot of the time. And then you learn. And even if you get it wrong again, you'll know not what to repeat and do. And I think that's something I'm quite good at. Like, I'll give an example, not related to career at all, but when cryptocurrency was huge, I put a lot into Bitcoin, and then saw it all plummet, and I knew nothing about Bitcoin, and that gave me, but I smiled to myself because I said that kind of reinforces my belief of don't put into something that you don't know much of. And it's those, I feel like those little failures, you kind of learn a lot more about your decisions and how you do stuff. And that was just a random explanation there of, or example, but I think the more you fail, the more you learn. So kind of get comfortable at failing and then going again, learning from it. And then the other thing I would say as a bit of advice is expect it to be highs and lows. So you will make a lot of wins and celebrate those, but kind of don't lean into both the highs and lows. So don't kind of give too much to the wins and too much to the losses, and kind of take it in your stride, because there will be both along the way.
I think that those are great, like really fantastic lessons, or pieces of advice. So just going back to your first one with the expecting to fail, I think that was a great example, because so many of the great people who are like super successful entrepreneurs, like, I don't know, or investors like Warren Buffett, if you look at their portfolio, so much of it is failing, and then they've had like just a couple of really good, well, maybe more than just a couple when it comes to Warren Buffett, but like wins. And it's not the failures that you see with all these successful people, it's the winning. So I think that, expecting to fail is a really good one. Of course, it makes you stronger as well, makes you come back more resilient. And with the highs and the lows, I think that being happy is really important. But yeah, being happy is especially when it comes to professional and personal life. But happiness is not a constant state, and I think that it's important to remember that. Yeah, I understand that like humans are driven by emotion, and if we were happy all the time, it wouldn't work for us. We'd never move forward, never want to do better. So yeah, I think that those are really fantastic messages to put across, Omar. So thank you for that. And thank you for this entire conversation as well. I've learnt so much. Thank you for squashing all of those misconceptions. I'll definitely warm up anyway, moving forward, now knowing that I can and am a runner. And I'm sure Billy, my niece, will be super happy to know what she should do now on the 2nd mile if she needs to go to the toilet. But yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing all of your invaluable advice.
No, it's been great. Thank you for your time, Stephanie, and great questions. And if any of your listeners want to try a Track Life session, just tell them to drop me a message and say that they've come through your podcast, and we'll get them having a little trial session for free.
Sounds good. I'll also put all the links to your social media and Track Life London, and so Track Life London, and your personal coaching website in the show notes of this episode as well. So if anybody's interested in learning more about Omar's business, you can find it in the show notes.